Yeah, I want to go tell a story. My hair looks a little bit better, but I want to tell a story about the Mukilteo Community. I think it's... Oh, before I go watch it, I'm going to go lock the door in case some spooky ghosts come over. Oh, there's my insurance. Tell a story about the spooky Mukilteo Community. I don't know, it's become a little gravesite. So a little bit of a background. I'm kind of curious to see how to get views on a YouTube channel. So I'm thinking I don't mind kissing people's ass on YouTube. I'm thinking I'm gonna just encourage people to go look into Mukilteo. I don't think there's any proof of anything, to be honest. But I'm definitely seeing some odd signs of what appears to be paranormal activity. So, to give some background on how I can even... You can't actually see paranormal activity, by the way. A lot of people say you can. You actually can't. You can sense it. And then whatever you sense, whenever you see an image of something appearing, that's your imagination, your perception of what you see. That's why supernatural phenomena isn't quantifiable. Because everyone senses something, right? And your imagination fills up like blank canvas of what you think that sense is, whatever it is you're sensing. Whatever you're sensing has to take form, right? That's why people have different eyewitness accounts of what Bigfoot looks like. All you do know is that Bigfoot exists, right? But you don't know what Bigfoot actually looks like. You can sense Bigfoot. That's all you know. That's actually what's going on with a lot of these paranormal activity. Like, these things exist, like the boogie monster and this stuff, but you can sense Bigfoot. That's all you know. But your imagination fills up the gap of, like, what that entity you're sensing looks like. That's a better term for it. So how do I know this? For some background, I went over this a little bit before. I have been let's go back to the beginning. So I did a deal, when I was born, before I was born. And I can't prove it, right? It's not in the MRI scans or anything. And I brought this up when I was a little kid, and I told my parents about it. They never really believed me either. Yeah, they didn't believe me at all. So basically, I agreed to be demonically possessed or possessed by a few things, some weird, odd things that I can't see what it is, but I sense it, right? I know whatever I sense communicated with me, and I decided to agree with it because if I did, I would live. Because otherwise, if I didn't agree to it, I would have died at some premature date. An early date. That's all I knew. I understand now the full details of the deal. Yeah, and the full details is my parents made a supernatural deal with something to get to the United States and basically get rich. And that comes with me supposedly dying some years earlier, right? And I should be dead already, right? So my parents keep getting richer. Well, I still want to live. That's kind of where the problem comes. Your life is supposed to be so bad, you're supposed to die. And that's kind of the deal. But what happens if they want to live? Then people don't think about it clearly. Then they lose their shit, right? If the person that's supposed to die lives, right? That's kind of where the entire plan goes haywire. Usually people don't complain, they just die. I complain. I'm alive, I don't care. So anyways, Mukilteo, I should have just shot a video of this. So I go there, and I'm seeing, like, cars just tailing me. And I'm okay with cars tailing me, but this is a little more suspicious. Like, the ambience, it's really disturbingly quiet. And I can describe this as really disturbing because the reason why I can handle this type of stuff is because I've been dealing with the voice, right, as I would call it, my whole life. I've been dealing with strange things entering in and out of my body for like 24/7. I built up immunity to this kind of stuff. Yeah, for like since first grade to like 12th to like college, right? That's why I performed badly in school, because there's a cost to like, well, it's, I call it, so when you let those entities enter, that's what you do when you stare into the inner darkness of the human soul and the inner darkness of everything else. You're basically staring into the black hole, right? Because the black hole in science is actually the inner darkness of a living being. That is actually what it is. That's what darkness is. Right? Jesus Christ died for our sins. Yeah, because you need a black hole in order for a universe to have living creatures on board. You need to expand on this detail because it's true. So anyways, looking back at the black hole, does our universe exist? Yeah, it does. The Bermuda Triangle. Jesus died so the Bermuda Triangle could function, right? And that's what allows our planet to actually function and activate, because that is our black hole. So the Bermuda Triangle is actually the result of a black hole inside our ocean. Has anyone tested a black hole? Like, ever played Portal and you just pull and you activated the gravity gun and you just aimed at the ocean? That's basically what the Bermuda Triangle is. Yeah, that's kind of what happened to the Bermuda Triangle. That's proof that we are actually living inside a black hole. You already know what's inside a black hole. It's living beings. That's why we cannot study it. Do you want to know why we can't study what's inside a black hole? It's because other living beings are using their perception to block our perception. Living beings of conscious entity, they're blocking it. So here's how you can access these black holes, right? So anyways, I'm going to go over into this stuff. You have to be in contact with supernatural phenomena. And being into contact means you have to let these strange things enter inside and outside your body for an extended period of time. So you can build immunity. That way you can come up with ideas for technology that allows you to go through the black hole. That's why a lot of scientists can't go through the black holes right now. Because none of them have taken that supernatural test, right? Of seeing through the inner darkness of the human mind. That's the litmus test to create the scientific hypothesis that can create the tech that can allow you to go see what's inside a black hole. But the catch-22 is if you take that test, right, you immediately fail school because the education system is designed to filter people like that out of the education system. That's called God's test, right? You know, we live in an anti-God society. That's your problem. That's kind of the catch-22. It's like, well, so what do you get? You get people who can't create the tech that can do that. And they can't see through, and if you can't see the inner darkness of human being, you get also sub-quality human beings in politics. You can't get people who can negotiate in the middle of the road. You don't get a lot of things. But you do get people who can do the job, right? Breathe, go through osmosis. You just don't get people who can save your life when you need it. I mean, it's up to you. Do you want someone who can just do the job and you just die at a certain specific age? Like mediocre people? Yeah, so like Scott Adamson said, mediocre, that's how you get mediocre people living in the system. That's why, because people don't want to stare into that void. Everyone sees the inner darkness of the human mind once, right? I do it repetitively. People choose to turn away from it. I've completely stared at it ever since like I was a kid. Everyone sees it, right? So here's how this path works, right? When you pick a path. Let's say you saw Bigfoot once. You want to become Bigfoot, right? If you want to become Bigfoot or see him, you have to see him repetitively. You have to choose, you visualize something. You have to have a strong desire to see Bigfoot for some reason, right? You have to have a reason to visualize him. Most people, when they see something scary, they're traumatized and they're not trying to like actively trying to contact Bigfoot. If you keep doing that repeatedly, you'll find Bigfoot eventually. It's like affirmations. That's how you pick a spirit path. So how does this relate to Mukilteo? This happened to Mukilteo because, so I worked in Funko, right? I know for a fact I met someone who went into contact with a voice. And I've seen, and I suspect that someone with the voice probably allowed the Mukilteo community to communicate with the voice. And the voice probably killed the Mukilteo community somehow. I think what happened, and so here's how this works so you know it's creepy. This is called creepy phenomena. So here's the drawbacks of using the voice and not... The drawbacks of using the voice, right, is that other people can use it, right? But if you fail in a venture, like let's say you cued the voice to use magic or whatever it is, right? Not magic, but supernatural phenomena. That's what I call magic. There's another way of describing it. Where you get some entity to move some other person to do something for you. And if you don't benefit, but only they benefit, right? Anyways, that's the safest way, because if only they benefit, then you're not in trouble at all. But if you get something like that they benefit, but the benefits you get don't concern them, then you're fine, right? That's the safest route. But the dangerous route is you get stuff from the voice that you're using too. So this is how ghosts are made. I've learned this after 20 years of studying the inner darkness of the human mind. By the way, no one wants to study it. Tesla, I think, didn't he kill himself? That's what I think happened, actually. That's why he came up with all those brilliant inventions. By the way, most pro-Nikola Tesla fans are retarded. They don't understand the cost Tesla had to pay to use any of this stuff. I don't really hate anyone. I'm just pointing out. I'm here. I'm LARPing. I'm basically LARPing because I couldn't get a high-paying job. Basically not taking any business. You go to computer science. You go to mathematics. And you go to these fields because you don't want to help the CEO run his company, really. You just want to build a product, right? But you don't know if the product can attract any sales. That's why it's easy. You don't have to talk to people. This is like, in a sense, as long as you understand the subject, it's just easy cheddar. Yeah, people don't want to help Bill Gates save his life, right? This is this type of difficult stuff people used to do back then. They used to, remember people used to talk about the supernatural stuff all the time? They used to help CEOs protect themselves, right? Get better dating offers, right? This type of stuff used to be commonplace. That's why people opted out, because they don't want to do it anymore, right? That's why you got all these generous retirement packages, because the supernatural was there, and people weren't afraid to communicate with entities that are hidden within the darkness of the human mind. So if you look at the universe, right, there's dark matter, and then there's normal matter, right? The dark matter is the spirit world. The spirit world is where you see all these odd things when you daydream. So when you daydream, you're actually activating dark matter in the universe. I can't prove that, scientifically speaking. The only way you can is just grab some dark matter, go to MIT, get a person to daydream who's really a psychic, and see if the dark matter actually starts glowing. That's more or less your confirmation that you're actually using dark matter. I suspect that's what it is. All the supernatural phenomena or unicorns, they're all made from dark matter. You can say that's a wild theory, but the reason why dark matter exists is because we live in a world where we have to make rational decisions, and we're filled with irrational actors. So the dark matter is a backup that represents irrational elements of our society. So if you've ever looked at quantum mechanics, there's things where it's like your perception influences your reality. Well, that's because dark matter exists. So you have quarks and leptons. They don't seem to make sense, right? Right? A lot of people take it out of context, but the reality is quarks and leptons exist on a micro level. So at a micro level, it's hard to tell, when these molecules, if I understand it correctly, these atoms turn into official atoms, right? And to form the actual elements in the periodic table, right? And to form our nucleus. So the reason why a nucleus can change, this is the official explanation, why a nucleus can change depending on perception, because the nucleus is actually a neural network for the atom, and where the neural network, so saying that you can just transfer anything with a perception is simply not true. That's only for seeing the nucleus of something. That's not for the actual substance of the object or the element. So at a default stage, right? So if you're a blind or a cripple, this is how I understand it. If I were to stare at this phone, right, at the base subatomic level, I would only see the nucleus of the elements that make up the phone. So I would shape the nucleus however I want. It doesn't matter. But once you get to a larger scale, your perception has to be influenced by whatever atoms are gathered. So technically, that's not true. So your influence so it's technically true in the sense that your influence, that your perception, you can imagine the nucleus to be any shape you want. That's true, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I can imagine the nucleus looking like a bunch of Doritos. Does that mean anything? No, that's just the nucleus of the atom. And at the base element, you have to do that for the nucleus, right? What's the most basic element out there? It's your thought. Most basic particle out there in life is your thought. That's basically why it seems like your perception can transform anything. So that's why the spirit world exists, because the nucleus of an atom exists, right? That's quarks and leptons exist because of that. That's the dark matter world. Because the nucleus, at the end of the day, is basically, because the most basic element is your imagination. How do you break down a thought? You can't. It doesn't go any lower than that. That's what they mean by perception influencing reality. So here's the thing. You can influence it, whatever, but you have to still follow the rules of perceiving things in a certain way to get things to go your way. So it's true, you can perceive the nucleus any way you want, right? But the overall atomic structure of the atom that the nucleus houses, that's not going to change. Yeah, so looking at that, you just think to yourself, well, that's a bullshit argument. Anyways, how does this tie into Mukilteo? Well, the supernatural exists because the nucleus of the atoms exists. How a nucleus is created. It's a thought. And thoughts can create supernatural phenomena, which come from dark matter. You know? That's kind of the reality of things. So the guys who criticize quantum mechanics think God's real, they're wrong. But what it does prove is if you can understand how quarks and leptons operate, you can start finding stuff like Bigfoot now. Yeah, you actually can understand what Bigfoot is. You can actually understand the actual shape of Abraham. You can understand the actual shape of Moloch or whatever else is out there. Because now, you know, they exist scientifically because we live in a rational society. No, okay, we have to make rational this. We live in an economy where you're full of irrational actors, right? They don't think rationally, but they have to make rational economic decisions because we're following scientific rules, right? So the system of a rational world, what they follow, in case the system collapses, they need something irrational to fix it. So the system becomes rational again, right? Because we live in a universe ran on entropy. Wouldn't it make sense to account for irrational elements? So I've talked about this before. So that's where the supernatural phenomenon of Mukilteo comes from. So the voice is essentially the nucleus of an atom without any electrons gathered around it. So imagine H2O, right? Imagine the nucleus of an H2O. That's it. All the nucleuses for all the periods of any element you'll ever discover is the same nucleus, right? Because you perceive it any way you want. Because at the most subatomic level, it's your thought. So we only have two types of perceptions as far as I'm concerned. Quarks and leptons, right? There might be more. There really only are two ways of perceiving realities, quarks and leptons. Now, whatever that is what it is, right? Yeah, if I were you, I wouldn't be too scared of it because reality is people should stop feeling like they have an ego. Stop pretending like they're better than everyone else. That's not the way to make progress in human society. No, it's not. It's a really dumb way. I can tell you right now. So anyways, someone carried a nucleus, right? A literal floating nucleus inside their body. It just entered their body, right? Because thoughts can be anything, right? They could be a demonic devil just going through you, right? That doesn't mean the nucleus is possessing you, but you allow the nucleus to go through you. You house the nucleus somehow. Either you're holding it in your hand or something, right? Because let's go look at H2O molecule. I swear to God, sometimes I'm going to go use Photoshop someday. Here. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can advertise this. Because I want more people to know about it. So let's see a nucleus, right? this little circle here. Just imagine that invisible thing you're holding in your hand. So do you know what happens when you hold a literal nucleus in your hand? It actually goes inside your body. Because it's a thought, right? A thought passes through your body. A thought could be anything, right? It could be an anime girl. It could be a Pokemon, right? It just says some loud noises. It's basically possessing you. That's basically what it is. So when you have a nucleus, right? Now, how is the nucleus designed? Here's how it is designed, as I understand it, right? Because during my years of staring into the inner darkness of the human soul. That's also why I don't think anyone actually follows the path of God, but maybe someone does, right? I'm always open. Yeah, I'm open to changing my mind. Because if I saw anyone following the path of God, I would have heard a lot of stories of Christianity I don't think Jesus followed the path of God. He probably left. That's why the Bermuda Triangle is still around, Right? He just left, Jesus doesn't care. That's why you say Jesus Christ, right? It's like, oh my God, right? That's because Jesus left. We all know he left. He doesn't care. Well, you don't want to stare into the inner darkness of a human mind for all eternity? That's a really dumb idea. Can you imagine thinking the worst aspect of your friend named Timothy? You think, well, Timothy's a nice guy, but maybe he's nice, but is planning on stabbing me in the back. It's like Macbeth. You just have all these nightmares you stare into. But the thing is, if you can stare through those nightmares, you can gather intelligence, right? Insights. Because it's dark matter you're staring into. That's what it is, basically. Yeah, and the school system in the past that worshiped God accepted both types of matter, right? But those who stared into dark matter now, in these days, because we're anti-God now filter out those who have taken the test to stare into dark matter, because a little bit of dark matter is now integrated into either their left or right hemisphere of their brain. So that completely filters them out of the system, because you're getting people to, so now I'm diagnosed with autism. That's basically what happened. Yeah, that's basically what happened. So I'm now diagnosed with autism because I can't communicate with people, because I'm always seeing the inner darkness of others, right? So I'm always seeing the terrifying version of them, right? I'm seeing a scary devil. I'm seeing a spooky ghost. Because the alternative for me, I believe, when I was a kid, I figured I might as well just share the story. It's well, I'm going to die. Do people take these deals? Yeah, they do. You see a lot of young kids die all the time. So there are plenty of adults, parents who take these kind of deals just to get rich and famous. And that's because no one in society wants to call them out. Now, back then, if you looked in the United States back in the 40s, people used to call them out all the time, right? Salem witch trials. People used to know, right? They used to know which family. And what they would do is they'd have a little sit down with the family, tell them basically don't have any kids. Put him in an adoption home, or why don't we negotiate, right? To put him in a different school system that's more God-friendly. Right? God meant something else. It didn't mean you're talking to God, right? You're talking to someone who operated within the regular matter universe. God is essentially dark matter. That's why you see that book called the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's forbidden. God is dark matter. Yeah, God is officially dark matter. It's something that you kind of have to accept. Anyways, Mukilteo took in the voice. They listened to it, and they followed it. They got stuff from it, and I guess it scammed them at some point. And they're broke as fuck, right? And they got stuck with a curse where if they kill themselves, they become mindless spirits. That's what happened here. And you'll see signs of it, right? They'll usually cue you in. The lights don't work on the street, on the light poles. There's a weird ambience you can hear. That you hear it on a wavelength that cannot be picked up by sonar or any other tech we have. Any other, if you listen to a voice insider, like you use the audio voice recorder on the iPhone, there are certain types of ambiances or certain types of wavelengths that are so small that you actually cannot hear them. It's the same principle. It's the same concept. That's what the voice is. It's giving you frequencies, right? That you cannot hear, that's not picked up by any modern technology. Because all the modern technology that you're hearing right now is based on, that's the things you're discovering are based on whatever frequencies that you had currently available before you had the voice. So the only way you can pick up this frequency with the voice, right, is if the prodigy or the inventor is able to, like, the only way you can feasibly get it. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean like the voice can't like hide itself by going into an even higher frequency, of course. So they can pick you up in a higher frequency. Anyways, so the inventor, like Tesla, had the voice with him, right? And he invented it based on what the voice told him. Then he could invent a tech that allow other people to hear the voice officially, and it would be confirmed by science. But that is assuming the Tesla, right? Because Tesla does have to follow the voice. Because you see his blueprints, right? That's him basically saying, I'm getting out of the deal. Because no one understands what his blueprints are. That proves that he doesn't really want to build any of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, considering people know that now, and it appears they just freak out all the time over it, I don't think people are mature enough to handle Nikola Tesla today. Yeah, they're not mature enough. I think it's better this stuff stay classified. Yeah. So, Tesla's like, fart, right? Like I farted just now. When I looked at those blueprints, I don't care. Thomas Edison at least tried to spy him off, right? No one buys people off who listen to the voice these days because all of their ancestors dicked around and didn't want to tell the truth. Lol. So, yeah. It's just what it is. I'm gonna go tell you a little secret about, So anyways, they try to commit suicide. That's my guess. The light system went off. And I'm seeing the poles, like, moving up and down. I'm seeing some cars tail me. I'm seeing a chick follow me with a dog. But here's the sign. The dog actually trying to run away from her. So if the dog's running away from her, right? What does that actually mean? So if the dog runs away from her, that probably means the dog doesn't want to be here, right? Or senses something odd. Because I sensed something really odd before I saw the female dog owner. Right? It's trying to get away from it. Dogs can sense supernatural stuff too. And the reason why they can sense it is because they operate more on their subconscious. So they're more exposed to staring into the inner darkness of other human beings, which means they have more dark matter inside of them. That's why they can sense supernatural stuff better. We can't because we actively avoid dark matter. So that's also proof that dogs are actually of a higher intelligence breed, or they originated from a higher intelligence breed. So I talked about this before, one of my Facebook posts, that when we eat animals, we're eating an energy field. We're consuming actual manifestation of energy. And the way we cook stuff is ways of breaking down the energy so we can consume it for ourselves of higher life forms from another universe. So that's why you see in the Bible, they're talking about Noah's Ark, right? All these animals are gathered there. Those are the animals that sold out to the UFOs, right? They became higher intelligence, right? And the agreement is these animals would be cloned, their genetic template, right? Would be cloned via DNA. And the energy field that would come would lift them up. So the river that flooded the world, right? That was actually the electronic field. Yeah, so the water from the earth, right, flooded the world, right? And that basically covered all the matter on the earth with an electronic field that basically creates the animals we see today. That influences our perception. It was literal water. Yeah, so any evidence of this electronic field is shown in the ocean, right? Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Red Sea. Caspian Sea. So all of those are remnants of that electronic field. So if you've ever looked at hydropower, right, you use water to basically create electricity. So the water is not normal. That was flooded the water, right? It was summoned by God. So anytime God uses something, right, he uses a bit of he uses an electronic field, right? So a sound wave from a wavelength that you cannot perceive to influence the physical world. So if I were you, I would say don't panic. Reality is just a shithole. Just go listen to TikTok and go look on Tinder. I don't know what TikTok is these days, by the way. Yeah, so anyways, look at the electronic field. So the water, right? I'll show you how the electronic field is activated. It is water. So when the water hits to the height of the Earth, right? Because it got summoned by the clouds from uptype, the darkness vacuum so the water becomes an electronic field when precipitation occurs through the black void of the universe. So it's the stars, right, that cause the clouds to form. So when that happens, the water gets ionized and floods the Earth. And once it basically infiltrates all the atmospheric layers of the Earth, like the ionosphere, I don't remember the others, the stratosphere or whatever, right? The troposphere or whatever else they are. It gets filtered. The electronic wave gets filtered through those layers, right? The ozone layer. And it starts screwing with the electronic field there. And then what ends up happening is the entire structure or atomic nucleus of the Earth starts morphing to house that field. Yeah. So all living beings, right? So that electronic field then stays there officially. That's actually how you basically get a living being, or that's how you basically invent a new element into the Earth. It has to go through those 3 layers. If you ever study cybersecurity, you have to go through 3 layers of protection. You have to create something from up above there. So basically, the wave is there. You see these animals, right? But the joke is there's no live animals anymore, right? The field generated by God, he gets the DNA. The field gets information, right? Genetic and mRNA information from your body. And basically the electronic field spreads that information of how the genetic sequence is collected into the database known as Earth. The Earth, the joke is, right, because I said it's a database, is basically the Google Cloud. It's not there's no real matter, right? This desk does not matter. It's technically an electronic field. This notebook is technically not real in a sense, but you can feel it. Now, you can feel that this is actual paper. Now, this is very much related to Mukilteo, because the entire electronic field got altered there. So when they killed themselves, or try to hang themselves, that's my guess, they started to tail anyone who's alive. Anyways. Is there proof of this? Yeah, you can prove it. You just need to get a little prodigy who has the nucleus inside their head, right? The voice. Who's actually housing an actual raw nucleus. And has practiced tolerating that nucleus that can talk, right? Or you're imagining it's talking anyways, right? See, the trick to have a nucleus be conscious is you have to imagine it's conscious, right? Because the most simplest element is a thought. So the moment you think something is alive, that makes sense, right? And it talks. If enough people think it talks, it actually talks. It has thoughts. Yeah. So how you would say that, but then but can't you influence what the voice says? Here's the trick. You don't know what the overall structure of that element is. So, here's the thing about creating a nucleus, right? That you can imagine just to house it randomly. You need to fill it up with some vessel of some sort. So in this case, we're talking about the supernatural. It's got to be some sort of goblet or some sort of magic item. That's why we're talking about magic, right? We're talking about quarks and leptons when we're talking about magic. That's actually what we're talking about, right? That's why I don't believe in a lot of people when they say magic's not real, because they're not talking. Because the moment you get rid of magic, quantum mechanics doesn't really make too much sense. In a scientific way, that's kind of the catch-22 of science. How do you broach this topic, right? Well, the answer is magic. That's alchemy. That's the missing gap. That's the missing branch in the evolution tree of Lucy the monkey. This is just a very, this type of stuff, by the way, was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think I read it in a dream. They just burned it because it looked horrifying. Yeah, this is just a really messed up. Anyways, so this notebook is technically data picked up by the electromagnetic field. So the data, right, or whatever coding programming it is, basically inputted a syntax command that our brain processes, and it recognizes that in a notebook. So best simple analogy for this, ever seen Python? You code stuff and a certain video game is made, right? Or a notebook is made. It's the same thing. Yeah, so how do you collect anything with a notebook, right? So how did that happen? The Bible gave you hints about this, right? So the Noah's Ark didn't just collect animals. It also collected atoms. So the device that started the electromagnetic field is Noah's Ark. The joke is Noah's Ark is no longer active because God left. So all the atoms in the earth all left Noah's Ark along with the animals. That's basically what it is. And the rule is whatever is inside that field, right? Because the field basically, the ark is a metaphor, right? It's an actual ship, by the way. It actually does activate electromagnetically. So the ark sends, or a scepter, right? A signal to the stars to create clouds, basically. And you can. We know you can create clouds based on, we know, at least as I understand it. I could be wrong, right? Because I think the universe is another planet. So basically the rocks basically precipitate, right? Well, the stars, otherwise known as the stars in this case, right? And basically, because the universe is, I think it's a closed system. I'll have to go look this up on Google. The universe is a closed system, but it operates on a feedback loop. So why don't I search this up, because this looks kind of curious. Yeah, I'm just talking about the Mukilteo community. I think they fucked up. Bunch of idiots is what they are. So anyways, let's look at this. Let's look at this. They pretend like nothing's going on. So anyways, this is a really fascinating tripod. I love this thing. So anyways, let's look at see if the universe, I don't care what it is, because closed open system, that's basically, this is a fascinating thought. So the universe is a closed system, right? By the way, I'm going to tell you a little truth. Just because it's a closed system doesn't mean it can't gather energy. Have you ever seen an amoeba asexually reproduce? The universe can asexually reproduce, by the way. Ooh, cheat code right there. So you already know, I already talked about this. There's 42 universes in total. 42 elements, right? That make up everything. If you look on the Bible, right, there's 42 Exodus stations. So what that basically means is that there's 42 universes you can flee to. Because when you make an Exodus, you're fleeing, right? So there's 42 diplomatic space stations that exist on the Earth. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah, this is a closed system, so it can still get stuff. Closed and so here's the rule. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. You know what that's called? That's called the Schrodinger's cat paradox. It's always fibbing. It has to decide on whether it's created or has to decide whether it's going to be destroyed, right? Quantum mechanics. Yeah, so this is basically how we absorb energy. This rule is what allows us to, because it's also within the Earth, right? That's basically what allows us to consume energy. It's an electromagnetic field. That's the hints. So all the atoms gathered on the ark. And as for how you get it, well, you just get a splice, a sample of it. That's basically what it is. God got a sample of it. Yeah, so why did this happen? Why did Noah's Ark? So if you read in the Bible why that happened, basically the people screwed up so much, right? A tide flood happened. Right? So that's a real story, actually. Scientifically, it makes sense, actually. No, so I'm not a believer in God, just so you know. I prefer not to believe in him because he's I'm the guy who knows God's real, but prefer not to believe it because I like the illusion. Like the illusion that we live in a fair and just society and we don't live with a fucked up, nameless blob deity that just kind of floats in and by, because then I have to understand now that basically made that dicked around, right? Because the universe operates on entropy. If I believe in God, I have to believe like we're in a chaotic universe, right? We need to create chaos. Like all order turns to chaos. That's a fucked up real world to live in, you know? So, like, no matter how good you have it, you're always going to fuck it up. You're destined to fuck it up. Because that's what God made. Why would I want to live in that kind of world? That's what happens if you believe in God. Now you have to know he's a lazy one, right? Or if he's not lazy, right? He's the one where all the aliens basically dump out all their stress and anger onto. That's the discriminatory universe. So, these black holes, right? They lead... The wormholes, those are actually spacecraft for the UFOs to travel through. I wouldn't take those seriously. They're just hyperspace lanes, right? They're not... They're just ways for UFOs to basically travel in and out fast, quickly. They're spacecraft. That's basically what they are. That's the modern day spacecraft. Do you want to know why you can't go through it? Because the UFOs in planet Nibiru will not permit it. Man, it's all in Nibiru. If you've ever read Dead Sea Scrolls or anything, it's Nibiru that's the concerning planet, which you can't access. We do have alien life. It's real. There's a lot of books are referencing it, right? As for the troll, like the moon hoax landing you see for Apollo 13 and all that, that's just basically hints that the UFOs are here already. They already infiltrated Earth. They already are getting what they want. It's cued in through magic. So that you can only access the UFOs through magic. That's kind of the catch-22 of science, which doesn't really believe in magic because they abandoned alchemy back in the 1900s or 1800s, right? So once you introduce alchemy, you might be able to get access. You might be able to come up with ideas that can get access to the UFOs, which are of a higher intelligence, right? So you can already tell which beings are of a higher intelligence. Just look at any of the species that are around you. Like the mice, right? They already evolved since then. What you're getting is data of mice from eons ago, back when Noah's Ark was around. You're not getting any relevant data. So hints of that can be found in the archaeological fossil records, right? The mice look tougher, they look stronger. Now, you're getting a weakened version of the mice on purpose. Those are the advanced species, the mammoths, right? Those are the advanced species of the elephants. That's where they, quote, got extinct. They never got extinct, that's the joke. They just left and became a higher species, and they just left. Yeah. Yeah, the UFOs, they're here, right? Anyways, my point is, Mukilteo played a dangerous game with the UFOs. From land and Nibiru, they communicated using magic, right? So they communicate using the wormholes that you find out in the Space Hubble telescope. They do not communicate through the black hole. The black hole is how you can port yourself out to any one of the 42 universes. By the way, within those 42, right, there's an infinite amount of variants of those universes. Those 42 are the Omega timelines. So where we're at, because we're seeing multiple black holes, we're in the Omega timeline for the bottom universe of number 42. So if you ever watch Steins Gate, there's... You know what? This is speculation time. There's actually, I don't need to look at it. Yeah, still, Stein Okabe is in the Omega timeline right now, right? It's the one with the... I forgot what the hell it's called. It's the Fatima one. There's a song like that. We're in the Fatima universe. The Macabre universe, right? The Dance of Death. And all the UFOs dump all of their anxiety, right? Their stress, their rage onto this universe. And the god here is supposed to convert it into liquor, delicious liquor. We're the bum. For the UFOs to consume. That's basically why we exist. Yeah, so the basic gist of it is God fucked up. And the electronic wave, right, because Dead Sea means there's a dead electronic wave. The wave is basically... So instead of helping us evolve, right, and giving us... So the wave that we're surrounded with gives us insights, right, into how to create tech and stuff. So instead of helping us evolve like it normally does, it instead degrades us, right? Makes us smaller. Makes us weaker. That's why it's called the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the wave is basically dead. So what do you get? You get a degraded wave. That's basically what you get. So you get these smaller sized mice instead of these mammoths or whatever the hell they originated from back then, right? You don't get dinosaurs, right? The dinosaurs are alien life. They're higher intelligence. And what you're getting is a weakened version of it. The dinosaurs can exist in this current weather. Yes, they can. So here's what happened. What you're not getting is that the electronic magnetic wave is manipulated by the dinosaurs that exist. Yeah, the cavemen, think about it. Could the cavemen really hunt down the dinosaurs? No, they really couldn't. So what did the dinosaur do? The dinosaur wants the caveman as the trading partner, right? Economic relationship, a NAFTA negotiation, if you will. So the Pangea, the supercontinent, is proof that the dinosaur wanted a unified empire. The meteor came because the dinosaurs wanted to punish the humans. They already left a while back. So these skulls, these bones, right, that you're discovering right now, those are actually essentially what the degraded wave used. So the degraded wave, which I call the electronic wave, because it was way stronger a billion or eons to the infinity years ago, whichever it is, because we definitely went through a couple multiverses. Yeah, we have, because look at the black holes. Why are we surrounded by a bunch of black holes? Now, you could assume one of the two possibilities, assuming you're my theory. It's either a live universe or it's a dead universe. So there you go. We have multiverses now. So that's the trick, right? Those are signs. In the moment you conceive of a multiverse, it's real, right? Because at a base subatomic level, the nucleus exists. And the nucleus could be anything. So, do I think we should care about this? I don't know. Do you have the money to send any money to Jeff Bezos? Do you have any money to send to Elon Musk? I wouldn't trust any politician. No one really cares, I'll be honest with you. I'm a very skeptical believer in politics. I don't know what Donald Trump is doing these days. Why is COVID-19 still a thing? You know, I see this Mukilteo community, they look like they're getting screwed by the UFOs right now. They get voided, right? That's the joke, right? Because the black hole is the void. So they kill themselves, and what they do is they chase anything that's actually alive and didn't play the game. Because I know there was a game a while back. They played with the voice. I chose to ignore it. Yeah, I chose not to get anything from the voice. So that's the rules. If you choose not to play, you don't get affected by it. It's like if you choose not to go near a radioactive nucleus, you don't get affected by it. So the nucleus, I'll clue you in, like the voice, came from the soul of a dead entity. And the dead entity contains the soul, the nucleus is housed within a genetic template that basically exists in all of us, and it activates it. It triggers it all the time. You know how there's certain protein sequences that are triggered depending on what you're born with? The nucleus basically does the same thing when you house it. And the wavelength it sends triggers a certain ribosome or whatever the hell it is. And you hear it. And you hear a voice from a high wavelength that you've never seen before. And it's usually a ribosome or genetic template that science does not know about. Now, I know there's a genome project, right? And it claims it's mapped all the known genomes. I would have to disagree. Because there are ways for the genome, within the natural selection, there are ways for the genome to elude detection, right? Because how else do you explain the brain? So there are ways to alter the genomic structure using your neural networks of your brain. I believe in that theory. Temporarily. Yeah, you can. So when you're studying the genomic structure of the human mind, or the human body, right? There's a genomic structure of the human mind that's like a bunch of commands in the center console of your brain, right? They call it the third eye, right? When you're studying the genome structure, you're only using two eyes. You're not using the third eye to study. So there's a whole class of genomes that are missing. You know, a lot of these scientists, that's why you get a bunch of retards from the education system, if you believe any of this. I'm a late bloomer, by the way. Yeah, that's the result. I was like, it's a miracle, right? Because I pursued knowledge and passion. That's why I kind of got through, and I didn't get destroyed by looking at the inner darkness of a human soul now. Yeah, I'm completely screwed now because I can't study tech and stuff. Haven't really been able to study that fully. I really want to, though. Because there's a lot more money, there's easier marketing. No one actually... no one thinks the arts has any real value. I think it's pretty worthless. I'll give you some hints. So anyways... Mukilteo lost the big gamble. They communicate through the voice, the nucleus, comes to a genetic template and is from one of these wormholes. It's connected. So if you're wondering how it's connected to a genetic template, the template... So imagine the nucleus of the atom, and it's stretched all the way far back. So in the future, we're going to create, this is like a far stretch, nucleus, like wireless technology, that have the nucleus of any element basically just be created just by the tech, right? So if you say you have a little remote control Bluetooth speaker, right? And you click on a nucleus, right? It's got a nucleus of any element. It's like a 3D printer. It just looks for the electrons you want to make whatever element you want, if that makes sense. That's basically what it is. So the voice is connecting to the wormhole somewhere out there. That's basically what this is. And that's basically what the nucleus is. It's called the wormhole. Is basically, so people wonder, well, where does the genome come from? Remember Noah's Ark. Let's go back to that. So the Noah's Ark, the agreement was the genome would be hidden inside one of the alien tech, right? Or if it's not an alien tech, it's a dead universe, right? And it has the genomic structure of all living beings. So whatever neural networks we have to communicate, it follows the genetic template. The genetic template is actually conscious. We force it to be conscious. It forces us to recognize as something conscious when it's not. And so the genetic template, we certain commands are inscribed in our genomic structure, right? In which we are forced to view that because of the electronic field, right? It's influencing us, right? You know how everything influences each other? It forces us to communicate and recognize data from the genomic chart and interpret it as a functional sentient being that has a certain personality structure, personality matrix. We're given a personality matrix, right? So if you've ever seen programming, you see an array or something. It's got these commands like, I ate ice cream today. I pet a dog, right? Like a Siri, right? You have like a multi-dimensional array, and it's giving you this informational data structure of a certain group of commands. That's basically what this is. It's a genome. So when you're talking to the voice, you're literally talking to a genome some light years away from inside a wormhole. Yeah. So do they exist? Yes, they exist. Of course they exist, because Noah's Ark existed. So the humans fucked up. So what did the humans do? They sinned too much, right? They weren't functioning. They fornicated too much. They basically snapped like the Amazon workers I'm working with COVID-19. So the only living beings on Earth are actually the humans. Everything else is dead. That's the joke. So I'm gonna look this up. So the only people who live like in Noah's Ark, because this is a real story, by the way. It's just that the Christians don't understand the full context of the story, and they're better off not, by the way, because none of them are following God's path. A lot of them are just kind of cowards. So, spares Noah, his family, and examples of all the world's animals from a world-engulfing flood, right? So, God caused the flood to allow the humans to become more intelligent. And Noah, basically, the agreement with Noah is that Noah is supposed to be God's vessel. So you ever see all these weird parables, like Job and stuff? Those are all... So if you ever saw Star Wars Infinite Empire, like Valkorion Tate tries to, demonically possess the Outlander. It's the same concept. Yeah. Basically, he's trying to look for a vessel to possess, because what is God? God is the voice, right? God is basically just a parasite or a nucleus that's trying to take control of another body physically. That's the job of God. Does he have to? No, not really, but that's his goal. His goal is to take control of a vessel. Because if you can't physically take it out, why is God a nucleus? So he's trying to take control of the Outlander, right? It's the same case with Noah. So why did Noah die? Well, he didn't want to take the deal. He escaped. Just like Abraham, he escaped from being demonically possessed by God, or possessed. A lot of people, like I said, they do need to grow up. Because, I'm sorry, reality sucks. I'm not going to say, look, every universe has its own issues. So, the 42. So Nibiru is in control of, because we have the binary sequence, 0 to 10, or 0 to 9, we have roughly 10 universes if we count dead universes that Nibiru, or 10 universes that Nibiru governs. We have 10 universes that are governed by Nibiru. We are one of the mother colonies, right? That Nibiru more or less controls. And Nibiru is one of the space stations in Exodus. Now, they changed names, so it's really pointless to know what it is now. And people, I'm not going to say they're dumb. I'm just saying people should react maturely to this, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a conspiracy theory. I'm just giving you what I think is the declassified information of the UFOs. Yeah, I don't even care at this point because Mukilteo fucked up. They just tail me. They don't talk to me about anything. I don't even care if you think I'm schizophrenic. You just don't, you need to know how to talk to people, right? Yeah, I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm not going to say. So here it is. It's the three internal divisions reflect the three-part universe imagined by the ancient Israelites: heaven, the earth, and the underworld. Each deck is the same height as the temple in Jerusalem, itself a microcosmic model of the universe. Yeah, so basically they made a deal with the universe, like I said before. It was a spacefaring tech. So TJ criticized Christianity. He should, right? Because they are actually full of shit, by the way. He has every right to criticize it. Now, the story itself is accurate. Now, as to what version, right, and how you interpret it, I'm giving you a lot of the context right now. Yeah, look, this stuff, so the exact details of the story, right? Debatable. You want to know why? Because everyone wants to forget about this stuff. They don't want to help you out, right? They don't want to tell you the context of living here, right? You ever wonder why politics is messed up, the world's fucked up? It's because God's kind of lazy. We are kind of living in so why don't we so I'm gonna leave this here because this is just one of the saddest things I've seen. Yeah, I'm gonna so let's look at so Noah did not get possessed. He escaped. We don't know where Noah is now. That see what you want to read. See, the Bible omits a lot of stuff out. People want to forget about it. King James wanted to forget about it. Everyone, right, wants to forget about this kind of stuff. They rather drink beer, drink wine, and party. Everyone doesn't care. Understandable, right? Does that make you like them? No. So, Christians' problem is when they argue about the ark, they are arguing as if like the literal story is real. I'm not going to say like the ark actually did or did not happen. I'm just telling you scientifically speaking, at least from what I understand. I'm not a Christian, by the way. That seems to be the most credible story I've seen. Because look, some of this stuff doesn't make sense, right? If you read it, like if you interpret it literally, like Noah's even no matter what era you're in, Noah's instructions are given by him by God, right? The ark is to be 300 cubits long. Like that seems like a bullshit dimension. So here's what I think happened for a lot of these things. So the ark exists. That's all we know. A lot of this stuff is inaccurate. The reason why a lot of this stuff is super, super inaccurate is because a lot of people dicked around with God, right? They don't, because he's all-knowing, omnipotent, right? You can't trust any of these stories. He would be hella deceptive. Why would he give human beings the accurate story if God feels like he's shorted, right? This is one of the reasons why I don't trust Christianity. They don't think, you think God doesn't hate you enough to tell you a lie of the story, to give you fake news, right? Donald talks about fake news all the time. Yeah, so there's a bunch of fake news on this Bible. That's all this is. You know there's an ark. Now, how the ark is made is a completely different story. It's basically a UFO ship. So, anyways, there's some hints that there's a lot of lies, right? Smeared. Carparta, you're smeared, right? Buck Cooper, right? You see that. There's just a lot of lies. So expect that's how I got cued in that everything's a lie in the Bible. So everything take with a super grain of salt, because God doesn't like you. Because no one's his vessel, right? No one wants his free will, your free will, to be taken over by another free will, right? Yeah, that's basically why it's a waste of time to follow God if you won't let him possess you, right? What's the point? And no one wants to do it. No one wants to take the payment. People leave after a couple hundred years. Abraham did too, by the way. So yeah. So anyways. So the wormhole, the UFOs from Nibiru, which are communicating through the wormholes. By the way, good luck, Elon Musk. Good luck finding them. You're probably not going to get anywhere. I'm not going to say you can't, but I have the theory that you can't get anywhere without the power of God Almighty. Because you would, if you let's say you get there, the UFOs would test you by trying to kill you, right? They're all omnipotent people too. If I believe in God, like the only thing that could really protect you against the UFOs, I could be wrong, is God. And if you can't get God, I don't know. What are you going to do? I guess you can go for some Reddit gold, huh, Elon? I don't even care these days. I just look at that and I'm like, well, I guess we could all dick around. I didn't dick around. I kind of had to. Anyways. So everything, so as an atheist, feel free to smear the Christians. They're not following God's path anyways. Because atheism, like God, if God was real, would there be atheism, right? He wants to leave, right? Like I said before. I already know what the deal is. God just wants to exit out. He doesn't like the human race. You can already tell from Noah's flood he hates the human race. If he's trying to help them evolve so much that they're the only living beings on Earth, yeah. Because everything else is technically part of information from an electronic field. Electromagnetic field. And we are not higher intelligence, really, where there's no food pyramid. It's just a flat line, right? So, flat Earth, right? That came about for a reason. It's not just because people thought the Earth was flat. That is because they're talking about the food pyramid. The food pyramid was flat. There is no up or down. It's just a flat line. And the flat Earth actually existed at one point in time in history. The environment of the universe was set up so much so that the Earth was the only planet that actually existed back then. They're talking about a time in history in the past. It's not like the theory was disproven. That's how I would interpret. Now, the round Earth theory is the most accurate one because the factors changed. Yeah. And who changes the factors? Well, God. God does, and the UFOs who don't like the humans. Well, the humans can't dick around. Nibiru Space Alien, I'm the only one that can dick around. That's basically what universal politics basically is in a nutshell. Only I am allowed to screw around. Otherwise, hear my wrath, and let me send some lightning bolts your way, you dumbasses. Yeah, that's just kind of how this game works. That's just UFO 101, right? UFOing 101. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. Well, I already know how sibling rivalry works. That's how the relationship between the God, who's a sibling of Mother Earth Nibiru, works. They just kind of bicker. They just bicker just like your little brother and the older brother fight. That's basically what's been going on for the eons and eons. It's just basically they just all bicker and nothing gets resolved. You ever wonder what that reminds you of? Siblings bickering. It's just a part of a smaller, wider scale of a wider cosmic conflict. That's basically what this is. It's just, I Nibiru Space Alien, I deserve more shit, right? You saw the Egyptian pyramids, right? They want gold. They want to trade slaves for gold, right? They give you gold. So every time I see a sibling, I'm like, well, don't feel too bad. That's how it is when God fights with his family from the Nibiru space aliens. They just throw shit at each other. There is no maturity. People think there's going to be maturity once you go out. There is if you join them. But if you stay within this universe, you're kind of stuck with a little brawl. Because why not? They're higher beings. Why can't they pick on you? Yeah, this is just a sad world we live in where you're not told the whole truth. So anyways, God decides, I give up, right? That's why if you're an atheist, you just feel better about yourself. Now, you could feel pissed off because none of them are actually following the path of God. Possibly, right? Yes, you ask them, are you staring into the inner void of human darkness? If they say no, it's probably no. God takes pity on people too, by the way. You don't want God's pity. You want him to actually, help, right? Actually give you a path that helps other people around you. Yeah. So yeah, Christianity is bogus. TJ Kirk can rest easy. Yeah, I wouldn't even care. We are in a backwater planet, like he said. So there's these other 41. So these 42 represent the 42 personalities we have. At least I like to call it the 42 forces of the universe, right? Yeah, so what we have are 42 different types of orders. So if you look at computer programming, right? We have things called algorithms. It's how we categorize and order things around. So there's a crap ton of algorithms. So there are swapping algorithms, and the ones we know that exist. I'm just making a guess, by the way. This is another conspiracy theory of mine, but this is what I understand from looking at the occultic sides, right? So let's look at sorting algorithms in computer science, right? Because there's chaos and order, you would have in computer science. I don't know. This is something I'm spitballing right now. So let's look. So we have a universe. So here are some of the universes we have right now. Hypothetically speaking. Making a guess. We got insert. We have a universe that we don't live in, right? That operates on the order of an insertion sort. This is a hypothetical universe. So we live in a universe based on the random algorithm, right? It's just chaos. So we got here are some of the hypothetical universes that the UFOs live in, the higher species live in. So we have the pigeonhole sort, where there's no such thing as language, it's just numbers. Yeah. So you're communicating through an encryption code, right? Hello is 5, 3 is pi, 8 is apple, 5 is king. Right? So the auxiliary array does not contain a list of input elements, only counts, right? So there are no elements, right? So anytime you see an electromagnetic field from within that planet, right? Well, it's called pigeon, right? Just for simplicity's sake. Pigeon universe. You are picking up a bunch of binary code. We do not live in a universe with binary code, by the way. Yeah, so what you have are So you have list, tuple, and any, right? So you have 3 species, right? You have male, female, and gay. Just go with that, basically. Now, whether it's part of the main one or not, one of the actual 42. So because, there's variants of 42 algorithms, right? Could be a variant of one of the 42. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, this is so the base, right? You have a base number. And so the base number is the starting key of anything. And so here's how your hypothetical day would go through. So if you are a number, you are base. So you ever heard of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, how you have all these numbers operating? Number 1, number 2, number 33. So you're just a number, right? You're labeled, and as a citizen, you're labeled based on numbers. Like, hey, I'm number 5, right? So, and you have a bunch of these numbers that basically represent chaos or energy fields. And everything's in order, right? Everything is in insertion sort. So let's go back here. Pigeonhole sort, right? Everything is basically so everything you do in the universe has to be pre-designed for you. So if you ever looked at a scheduled task list, everything operates on a task list. So before you can do anything, right, everything must be written down before you do anything. There are no other drawbacks other than whatever you do, everything has to be written on a list. There's a universe like that. And basically, if you want to negotiate or do anything, right, another actor has to come out and look at that task list and write another task list that helps complete his task list. This would be one of the top universes, number 1 or number 5. Because that is a universe that operates on a task. So here's the other one. The bucket sort. This is another universe. Let's say this is a subset of the pigeonhole sort, right? It's like another variant of the pigeonhole sort universe. Because they kicked it in the bucket. So you see the bucket sort, you got the array and K. New array of K empty list. So here's how you do it. You would have to insert a list, right? This is less sufficient because you should have the list be everything. So you want to insert a list into another individual and who organizes it into something else. You're using 2 people. And basically, they do the same thing as the pigeonhole sort universe. They have a preset ceiling and floor. So what is that? So what that means is there is a cap to the total number of actions you can perform. That goes for the pigeonhole one. So anyways. So the postman sort. Anyways, I don't need to talk anymore about this. So this one, the multiply and sooner algorithm, I'll go through one more. This one is the universe that is something that existed in the past. It's basically a universe where there's order. There's no chaos, right? There's no entropy rule. Everything is in order, right? But nothing changes. And this existed eons ago because you remember human beings after the dinosaurs didn't really advance in tech for a while until the agrarian revolution. So that means the tech never changed. Well, that universe died out because you don't see that anymore. So the moment they started advancing in tech, that multiverse died. So if you have a backup drive, right, you gather all the data you need, you do a Noah's Ark, right? And the Noah's Ark is basically your backup drive. You grab everything and you start a new wave, right? A new electromagnetic wave that sets up the variables again. And the guy who comes out of the Ark basically populates the Earth. So here's the hint that you know that I'm not going to say the simulation joke. That's not quite correct. You are living inside you are living in an organism that has the simulation inside of them. But you are living in an asexual organism. The simulation does not asexually reproduce. Right? The simulation itself can't do that. Now, the organism technically has all the properties of a simulation. But it's yeah, there's problems with the simulation theory. But it's the closest thing you got to what's going on. So Mukilteo, the magic, what it does is it forces the Mukilteo community to operate within the simulation. Given all the good details I told you. And if they fail, because the simulation is the... so you ever heard of the... I'm trying to see how to simplify this. It's basically a virtual box. It's the virtual box you install into the Mukilteo community. And so when they die or commit suicide, right, they are operating in a different box now. They show up from a different dimension, right? Because you got a backup, right? You port them there. So if you have so how this works is if you get a significant percentage of the Mukilteo population to play the game. I think they all try to commit suicide at some point. Though they just reappeared. So they're trying to communicate, basically, and try to see if you're alive or whatever. That doesn't mean they'll actually talk. Yeah, so simulation theory. So all existence is an artificial simulation. It's more accurate to say all existence is a thought. We have an organism that's the embodiment of a thought amoeba. That's not the simulation. Because to create the simulation, you need a computer or something, right? A lot of electronic data stuff. This is just a thought. The nature of existence is that we exist in an organism that exists, that is just a thought. That's a little bit different. The thought is conscious, and it creates other thoughts that audit, the original thought, so it can keep growing, right? A thought can grow and operates on an infinite energy feedback loop. So before the thought dies off, right? Here's the rules. It creates more thoughts, right? It's conscious. So 42 seed thoughts were made before it died. And then those other thoughts have equal weight, right? Keep thinking other thoughts, and then before you know it, right, you get an infinite population of thoughts that later grow and represent universes. So yeah, that's not the simulation. Because our thoughts aren't artificial. Yeah, so yeah, I would not go with the computer simulation. But anyways, you have that. Mukilteo failed the game. They died off. So you see them tailing anything alive. And that's the rules of anything that was dead in the virtual box. It's trying to communicate with material variables. I might not be the only one tailed, by the way. Would be anything outside of the virtual box environment or inside that didn't get deleted. You'd be witnessing both living beings inside the virtual box environment and outside. So you ever see Yu-Gi-Oh! There's the Shadow Realm, which is the virtual box, and the non-Shadow Realm, which is not the non-virtual box environment. Yeah, so that's basically what we got right now. Now, do I think... Anyways, going on a little rant. I kind of don't like doing these videos. I'd much rather go do computer science and just stick around and just get a 6-figure salary and pretend everything's all hanky-danky, hunky-dory. Yeah, the big joke of a lot of these programming jobs is that the business CEO runs all the risk. He gets into a lot of these magic deals with God. Because that's what he does, right? You ever seen Silicon Valley? They all have those crystal balls. Now, take into context what I just told you. Dude, don't you think they made a deal with those things? I don't want to make a deal with those things. No, I don't want to. I want to become a programmer, earn my 6 figures. I don't want to get involved. Like, I just want to get some money from the guy who made magic deals, right? Because you could be starving for like a week, right? If your business goes under. Doesn't matter how successful your company is. Asian people know this pretty well, right? And they know about magic. They don't really want to say anything as plainly as me. Yeah, you really want to just take these, because if you want to start a successful business, the truth is you gotta take some magic deals. Like if you want to be a billionaire, like you can't otherwise, right? Why do that when you can just get some cash from people who already took the magic deal, so you don't get involved? Just save. As long as you make the right decisions and save, you should be fine, right? That's what I prefer. Rather than, hey, look, let me look into the inner void of the human mind a little further. Because before you know it, I'll have to get crystal ball too, right? So the billionaire doesn't have to, right? The crystal ball is a way of protection, right? For him to not stare into it. But I still have to, right? I have to go be plain about it because I'm outside the school system, so I'm forced to produce results. Like honesty, right? Honesty is a valuable commodity in today's market. Because honesty is what allows people to get stuff done. Right? If you're a computer science major, you're not really obligated to help Bill Gates keep his money afloat when the business is down. You just leave, right? Yeah. Yeah, you're not obligated to protect. You ever wonder why Bill Gates is angry? Yeah, so let's take a look at this Harvard deal, right? Bill Gates. It's a 2-hour podcast, pretty long. So let's look at Bill Gates, right? If I can still find it. Bill Gates is a Bill Gates is an angry boss, right? CNBC, very happy guy. Bill was an angry, difficult boss in early Microsoft days. Here's why employees still liked him: because you could get money from him and not run any of these dangerous risks. You know, this is just the world you live in. What do you want to do? Look, I just keep telling you, right? So here's the thing: a lot of college degrees, you can get it. So let's assume that once you go to college, right? They assume you have a level of competence that you may or may not have, right? That's why a lot of rich people are like outside the school system, like Elon Musk, right? He doesn't want to talk about talks about why you don't need a college degree to do stuff, but that's what he's talking about, like I said before, is out of context, because he's assuming you have more money from not going to school to pursue more projects that give more of a service to that company that you're trying to apply for. That's basically it. You're retooling that cash, repooling that money to spend on something else that helps the company more. So you can do more projects that the company wants. Because you don't really know if any of the school projects you do will help the company in the long run. He's not saying you do easier work, you do harder work. So yeah, I would rather do that. This is just a blog where I bitch about stuff. I don't want to talk about this type of stuff because people know, right? A lot of people want to know, they want to opt out. Yeah, you don't want to talk about the 42 space stations because the rich guy has to deal with this shit too to get his business running. He has to deal with exactly this kind of shit. Yeah, I'm just telling you, you can't. You have to be spicy, right? You just still, people don't like that. People would rather be like, I live in a normal, rational world. I'm a rational asshole, and I'm better than other people, right? Meanwhile, I collect some nice cheddar from Bill Gates. Not as much, right? I'm jealous of Bill Gates, by the way, but whatever. The illusion. Rather than the reality of Bill Gates is making some deals with some deities out there that no one really wants to talk about. I am not going to say anything more than that. I'd rather get those 6 figures and leave and don't have to deal with entities where you have to stare into the void, because I wanted to stop doing that, get a nice programming job. Because you don't have to. You really don't. Because you're getting protected by the employer who has to do those deals. Otherwise, you have to start doing these YouTube podcasts where you have to talk about this kind of stuff. Because as a CEO, you have to go swim in that shitstorm. Because that's actual work that needs to be done. It's a very stressful thing because there's so many drawbacks, right? Because the higher paying job is right there if you just go through school. And what's even better is you get a lowball the CEO because the degree costs so much, they have to inflate the salary artificially. Take into account to justify the cost of the degree. So, same for the other courses. You will get a job eventually, whichever field you go to, right? And because everyone has a college degree, you can play the, well, everyone has college degrees, so they're going to become bankrupt if they all go, right? So that forces the employer to comply indirectly through the government giving them pity. Because the government gives them incentives to hire them. So they have to pay them more at an artificially high rate, and then you have to wait until you get paid, right? So that forces the employer to give preference, if this makes sense, to the college degree. With the current system. So you don't have to run these risks either with the other degrees, actually. But the thing is, you if you're an artist, you have to compete with other people, so there's more work involved. But I much rather but there's more talking, right? There's more sales work involved. Computer program has the least amount of talking and sales work. So you can basically ream or get more money from the rich that way, depending on your perspective, of course. So, if you're outside the school system, right, you don't have a bachelor's degree, you don't have any of these requirements, you don't have a recommendation, right, you have to start doing this type of work to get noticed by your employer now. You have to make your data public, right? Because their employer is not going to be comfortable dealing with you, so you have to shorten yourself. So the employer can get you to, so you can get hired. Because why else would they take a chance on someone who hasn't gotten a degree in any of this? Because you need to build up a portfolio. You need to get credentials somehow. Yeah, they don't have to participate in the drawbacks of staring into this stuff. Because we live... So, it didn't get integrated. My guess is because it's more anti-God. There might have been some hexes, right? They might have repelled the dark matter or God away. So there's something going on there. There's a cost that were there other people? Yes, there are plenty of other people who did the same deal as me. They kind of opted out. I don't know if they got taken by the UFOs or anything like that. I have no idea. Did they get taken? What happened to them, right? I don't know. I know they all saw it too. Take my testimony as you will. They all saw the same dream. And a lot of these people who... So, if you wonder why the Bible stopped, it's because everyone else was, like, super disappointed. So, MLK, JFK, Margaret Thatcher, all these people who took the deal with God just kind of opted out. Just straight out opted out because, you know, they died at a pretty, like, 40 years, right? They did, because, they followed God, right? Let God become, they're God's vessel. They would have lived forever. They wouldn't have died, right? That's just my assumption of the deal. Yeah, you have to talk about this stuff once you're outside. Now, personally, I prefer to get shorted and go find something easier, which I can't. So I wonder if there's other people out there like me. I don't know. So I'm not like... Yeah, you just, So if I were... So if you're outside, you have to do more work. You have to do shadow work. You have to talk about alchemy, right? The value of alchemy to the scientific community, because now they can may want to hire you. So if you go to a college, right, you don't have to do that. You take some science classes. DeGrasse Tyson, right? You saw that, right? Creative thinkers. You actually have to do creative thinking. This is called creative thinking. You actually have to... This is exactly the type of stuff Neil deGrasse Tyson wants to look for, right? This type of... Look. You figure things out. Let's see if this is the right one.
Again, a contrived example. And you're interviewing the two candidates.
Yeah. You actually have to be the thinker, right?
So
No, I'm going to tell you something. The thinker is hard. Everyone wants a thinker because now you can actually hire them for $15 an hour instead of like six figures because of that college degree. You have to do more dangerous stuff to get that same salary. That's why the thinker always wins, right? But that means you actually have to show yourself, right?
The question is, she wants choices in front of her to pick from. This would continue the whole life. And then I tested this with other people. People want choices.
That's the thing. With a thinker, you have to be forced to present choices too. That's where it's wrong in the video, right? So now you actually can hire this super cheaply, right? That's the problem with the guy outside the education system. You have to do more work, right? So if Tyson got, Neil deGrasse Tyson wanted to get into a polygamous marriage, now you have to help him do that within that same salary cap, while the college degree doesn't have to do that. Because you have lower expectations. You assume they already have competence from the paper, right? And there's no money for you to help Tyson do that because you spent it on a college. So, yeah, you can be outside, right? But you have to do more work to prove yourself because they can fib more, right? That's kind of the problem you have right now. That's why Joshua Fluke's there, right? He's doing more work to prove himself. So this is kind of the thing. You don't want to be the thinker. You want to be the guy who's regurgitating shit. So otherwise, you have to go through these clusterfuck HRs, which I'm doing right now. Like the public HR. There's the HR called the Court of Public Opinion. No one wants to talk about this, right? There's a lot of people that do, but if you go to Squeak and Invade talking about this, you're better off not knowing. There's people who know.
And I realized maybe it's hard to just think originally and come up with a fresh thought that the person who's offering the question hadn't thought up yet.
Yeah, that's difficult. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go do these dangerous stunts to get an original thought, right? Because there's a cost to doing it. That's the problem. The moment you get hell-bent, people can assume stuff about you. Like, you let the paper do the assumption for you. You want that security, right? Rather than proving it by example, right? You don't want to do the proof by example, because now the employer's like, well, that guy's got a degree, you don't, so you have to do more work, right? Joshua Fluke would say, yeah, that's basically it. The thinker always wins as long as he's willing to do more work, right? For the same pay. With the college, you don't have to. Because you're assuming that it has value. Like, you're not seeing DeGrasse Tyson, like, barter his way to death for the degree. So I talked about this before already. He's not haggling, right? He's not saying, well, this professor sucks, this professor's good, this professor sucks, right? He's not out there reaming their ass. They just assume shit. That's great. That's fantastic. Don't you think so? I don't want to go be like, hey, look, here's God. Here's the 42 space exodus stations. Right? This is the type of stuff people want to hear, right? You're a rich guy. You want someone who might actually, on your team, who actually might want to do this, right? Because this is the type of stuff like this type of stuff that helps you save a business from collapsing. You go to school, it's like, well, you talk to this professor, talk to that professor. Oh, you're certified, right? Right? So this is their choice.
So one student spells it C-A-T. Person got it right. Next person spells it.
So this isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but my point is the guy who spells it K-A-T has to figure out how to spell a C-A-T as well. He's doing like triple the work for the same pay. I'll come up with new solutions. This is how the thinker becomes more valuable. So I'm just giving you science. So people like to think. So here's the catch-22. The thinker is the only one who comes up with the shit I say. He has to figure out how to understand the thinking of the non-thinker, right? And at the same time, also come up with the stuff that people want from the thinker, that like brilliant stuff that would have come from a non-thinker if he stayed there long enough. The catch-22 is the non-thinker would have never came up with it. In order to come up with the non-thinking, brilliant non-thinking stuff, you have to be the thinker first. You have to wear both hats. You have to dual wield, right? You don't want to do both. That's too much work. You have to prove yourself to the employer. You have to keep fighting to death, right?
XQW. You realize that is marked equally as wrong with the KAT?
So it's wrong, right? There's nothing, no doubt about that. But here's the thing. The guy who fails has to try harder. He's outside. He's broken foots. He has to try harder. He not only has to get everything right again, right? He has to do other stunts to get him noticed, right? Because he can't go to school again. So this is where I'm talking about the shorting. This is why I'd rather go to school, so if I could get past the system, I don't have to do extra work that the other candidates don't have to do because they have the degree, because they're assuming the degree has value. So if you're a rich guy and I explain this like 30, 20, 50 different times, now you figure out, okay, I know what's going on. You finally start to understand, oh, okay, now I'm starting to see why the thinker is more valuable under certain conditions. I'm trying to now go for the under certain conditions now. Yeah, so let's go over. So this is a pretty big story. We are at a very... So I'm going to cover one more thing before I leave. Because I have I could probably take up 10 or 20 hours if I wanted to. I honestly want to get paid to go to school again so I don't have to deal with doing this crap. I'd be a lazy fuck and pretend that I have an ego. Scott Adams' world of having an ego sounds pretty fantastic right now. Love having an ego. Makes me feel good I don't have to do this work. Just stick around. He talks about The Office a lot, by the way. I just keep laughing. Yeah, just a fantastic. Anyways, so David from Apex Writers Group. Let's go look up Dave. I don't know if I want to look at it. Actually, I don't need to, but he's not dead. There's no evidence of any of this shit. I asked, so this is how I know. I asked for photographic image of his memorial somewhere. David's a famous guy because Mukilteo seems to know him. They send me crappy stuff of that all the time. Now I say crappy because they kind of tormented me to get me to write. But anyways, I've joined some therapy groups since then just to make myself feel better. And a schizo posting group to hopefully that didn't happen. The paranormal thing and that, those are two separate things, by the way. I'm going to do a photo shoot of the Mukilteo paranormal activity over there next time. I think it's actually haunted. I definitely think they tried killing themselves. The aliens just bring them back alive just to haunt people. Give them schizophrenia and paranoia. They don't like them. They don't like other people now. I'm just going to tell you something. The UFOs actually make ghosts. Yeah, because it's dark matter, right? You think UFOs don't know how to use dark matter? Ghosts are basically dark matter. Those are not anomalies. That's dark matter right there. Now, what you see from that dark matter, right, that's an easier explanation, is a different story. The UFOs do not like humans. They think they're dumbasses. You can tell because God traded slaves. Cleopatra traded slaves for gold. UFOs want to torment them. No one thinks they're valid. So if you ever wonder how the Great Pyramid of Giza was made, don't believe in Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is probably just smoking a little too much cannabis over there. I don't even have to smoke cannabis to tell you that. I'm lucidly telling you the truth. I'm doing this with no funding. I'm kind of hoping I get more money. I'm kind of thinking of like photoshopping and drawing some sarcastic names because I'm just here to complain about the school system. Yeah, because I want a high-paying job. I don't want to like tell my employer more about this crazy shit they'll probably have to engage in someday. Yeah, Bill Gates, he's got a very rough life, right? Jeff Bezos, right? Jassy, right? VP, right? They all have pretty difficult lives because you don't know when they're going to get paid, right? People like to think, well, if you're a manager, it's really solid. People don't know how good they have it until they lose it, right? I'm one of those people. I do not like running business risks unless I really have to. Because there's going to be days where you can't eat food, right? Like Thomas says, there's going to be days where the company makes zero money, right? I, as someone outside the education system, I have to help you take those risks. I actually have to share the burden with you. I may actually go without pay, right? I'm willing to do that. Because the other employee has assumed value from that certification. Isn't that what a certification does? It's an assumption of value. So I don't have to do that shit for you. No, you don't. You just assume, well, that's valuable, right? I have to do that. I have to prove myself to get that value. I have to do that because I'm like outside. I have to prove myself harder, right? Otherwise, society doesn't like people like me, right? That's why people like honest people because, like, well, no one likes you. So it's like, well, if you want me to hire you, you got to do more shit for me than the guy who's likable because the likable guy makes me feel good. Then you slowly understand, well, the honest guy has to do more, right, to get the same treatment. All of a sudden, I like the honest guy better. That's how the rich make that realization. Rich people aren't dumb, dude. They're pretty smart. Because you're going to make a lot of unlikable decisions in your life. So, if you have a photo you like to share, there are no photos. So here's the keyword. We are looking for photos of Dave for a memorial video. How about a current photo of a coffin for David? So you see this admin thing? Hi, this is Spencer. This is actually David commenting. Look at the key here. We're looking for photos of Dave for Moravia. That's what I got clued in that David is still alive. It's the context. That's why I stopped afterwards. And there's a reason why I stopped posting after this, because this is the evidence indirect that David is still alive. Now, what's David? Well, so people are still commenting on Apex Writer Group, right? Because he's famous, right? You would think the other groups like Permaman or God, they would have posted that he's alive, he's dead, because he's such a well-known figure. So why are people still posting? I'll tell you why. Because David Wolverton sucks. That's why. David Wolverton cannot make as much money as David. That's why. They're just LARPing. That's just the way of them complaining. They're not happy. They're just hoping David officially comes back and doesn't disappear like a Doug trio. David at this point is a Pokemon. He's burrowed a hole for him to escape through. Now, I'm not seeing any photographs of anything. Now you can say, well, the family might be uncomfortable, but I issued a challenge. The no response probably means he's alive. I don't think there's any money in Apex Writer Groups. That's probably why he left. Feel free to keep complaining about him, by the way. Keep going. You have a blizzard because David Wolverton probably didn't get trained enough to replace David. David, far land, right? He went far away to a distant land. Yeah, this is his exit strategy. So you look at his last name, right? I can tell you that probably was not his original last name. He's given you clues, right? How he disappears when he doesn't like a business he forms. He disappears to a faraway land. Now, it could be the Bahamas. It could be in Texas. I don't know. That's just evidence of David just not caring. Now, I'm not going to care, right? I choose not to care about that. But the reality is David is gone. So I'm not going to say much about that, other than the fact that I don't think this was the best exit strategy. I don't think this was the right way to leave. I think David should have said, hey, I'm disbanding the group. I don't think it makes any money. David isn't that kind of guy. He's a very passive-aggressive guy. And he's the type of guy who won't tell you that he wants to leave or break up a group because it's not making enough money. I am the plain guy, right? So let's go back to the outside the education dichotomy. If I were to get David Wolverton's spot right, I would have had to say, yeah, David Wolverton, I would have said, hey, look, I'm sorry, David. I think you should have an honest conversation about what the hell's going on. I refuse that money outright. You can terminate me if you want. I will go without pay. That's the type of shit I do for you. Yeah, that's what I would do for you right now. Because, look, you have talent, right? You helped Stephen King become a best-selling author. You helped all these other people that I do not know about, right? You built millions of bestsellers. Okay, so there's no more bestsellers right now, right? And these writers aren't really making money. They're just all bullshitting around. Now, this is time for an honest conversation, right? If I'm outside the education system, I have to be I'm incentivized to do that because I have to do more for the same pay. Now, if I'm within this system, why would I, right? You just only put as much minimal effort as necessary. So now I have to be like, oh, hey, look. So I would have done that because I would say, hey, I'm the guy who will go through the political landmines of HR. Because you have to do that, right? When you start a business, you have to be willing to battle everyone, right? That's what life is. Life is to get, and we live in the universe to expand our order or expand our organization, you have to be willing to engage in a debate or a fight with ideas. David does not do that. His way of diffusing a conflict is moving far away to a distant land. David Farland. So how do you contact David again? This is the question. Here's how. And I'm gonna clue you guys in because you guys are kind of just in complete denial about this. It makes me wince, by the way. It's painful. So here's what I would do. You find a best-selling author. You give it to David Wolverton. And ask David Wolverton if he has a special tutor that could help him make a bestseller list. That's how David Farland comes back. And it would be a private meeting. It would be under another pen name, I assume. Yeah, I would not trust anything about on the internet. There's a lot of deception involved. David Wolverton, I don't know if that's David Farland's son. There's some resemblance. Yeah, David Wolverton probably knows. But the joke is to get David Farland, you have to please David Wolverton first. Because he's far away, right? So this little game of The Office is here because he's still fibbing. He's not sure if he wants to leave or not. So the group hasn't made any money. And this ties into the anime industry collapsing. Here in the West and the East. And AMC, the movie industry, collapsing as well. So, I really... Yeah, please send me to school. I don't really like talking about this stuff. This makes people depressed and act like idiots. Yeah, there would be a hum at that moment because it's like, well, I'm still deciding on whether I want to hire anyone from college right now. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to assume that degree has value now. I don't know. I would if I were a college grad, if you hear this and you're sharing this with you, I would run the fuck away as possible because now the employer would audit your degree. And like the employer himself will actually personally look at the teachers. Got to rate my prof, look at whether they use a solution manual route, and then you can pay people less, right? Just play this little Chinese peddler game. No one wants to do that, but anyways, yeah. I'm gonna finish this up, cap this up. Let me know if there's any editing videos. I like getting a list. If not, I'll just investigate on my own. Maybe copy creepypasta, get that cover art. See if I can expand my thing a little bit. This is a very long podcast about Mukilteo. Well, I'll see you later then. Bye.